Did vote, yes.
I see.
Yes.
So you see, you've got 3 children, haven't you?
Yes.
And from an early age, they have to be taught about the structure of our society, our council, our structure. Now, this all falls in with the governance of our community. Now, the diversity and the racism and the cohesion, see how they're all interconnected?
Mm-hmm.
Be part of the system. If you're out of the fence and you're making a lot of noise, then your activism, making that noise, will not be effective. Yes?
Yes. You have to fight from within, of course.
Yeah.
And it could be small changes. You make small changes, but over time, small changes will have an effect. You got to remember, like just to give you an example of the United States, I was listening. Although it was a democratic country from about 1825 or so. Actually, the first act, it's called the Templeton Act, a member of Congress at the time. It was not until 1881 that there comes an act of Congress whereby they said at least 10% of the jobs should go based on competence and not based on party allegiance or cronism or friendship. So before, it was, the jobs and the positions were given to, the friends of the party that wins. So it was like, whoever wins the war gets the spoils.
So you're talking here from a very, very early period, the concept of cronyism, the concept of tokenism and selection, right? This problem is still here today, is it?
I think so, to some extent. I mean, it's still present. They call it clientelism.
Now, nowadays, I feel, do you think that racism has become a social media trend over the last few years? We've had issues of racism the 50 years I've been in this country, right? And each decade we have had the cure has been an antibiotic.
Mm.
Yes? And we've had various reports. Why does an incident have to happen before we start creating another report, which takes up to 2 years to come to print? So all of you at home, you can do your research and find out how many reports have come forward in the last 50 years. If we started in 1970s, all the decades right up to 1921, and how many reports have come forward? So what has been the fix? Do you think that the fix has been an antibiotic?
I don't think so. We're there yet. Yeah. I think there is issues. I was actually listening Radio 4 yesterday, and there was a musician from South Africa. His name was Leon Bosch, and he was giving his story. He was a double bassist, and he worked for different companies in London. He performed in various places, including the Royal Albert Hall, and he was explaining how racist, some of the places he worked at were to him. And the head of the Royal Albert Hall came out and expressed his sadness and his disgust that these things were happening. He was a very, very talented musician. So, and he was telling his story on Radio 4.
Of course, that is in South Africa, right? I'm concerned here about England right now.
It was in England, yes.
It was in England this happened, yeah?
Exactly, yes.
Now, racism today has been spoken about openly today as it was before, but still we have racism, right? Now,
I think we'll continue to have it.
Why does BLM, Black Lives Matter, have to have been created? Or the incident that happened in the USA, Michael Holding, then he made it very emotional. Michael Holding is one of the cricketing greats from West Indies. And following that, money started flowing into the black cricket environment. Loads of money. Now, why these knee-jerk reactions that the incident has have to happen and the cure is some custard cream biscuits, to to do this, what we call a knee-jerk reaction. What are your comments on that?
I think racism is an issue that will remain because we have to understand why people are racist. And I think perhaps we need to look at historically at how we've evolved. We're not much different than the animal kingdom. So we've evolved from being an animal. And I think what's happened is that we naturally want to be together. And we would think that anybody who comes in from the outside as potentially being a danger. That's the kind of like the natural way that we behave. But, we've evolved into much bigger brains and much more powerful reasoning than other animals. So, you ask yourself, well, why is it still happening, And I think people just need to be educated more.
Of course.
Diversity is powerful.
Is it more education? Certainly, I agree on that. Culture rather than skin color or race, right? These are the issues we are discussing throughout the country. We talk about diversity, we talk about cohesion, we talk about UBT, unconscious bias, training required. And we are 50 years on. We've been here that long. Say, let's actively, from the 70s right up to now, half a century, and we're still discussing the same issues we were discussing in pre-1970, in the 60s.
Yeah, look, when I came and been to school here in this country, I felt a little bit of racism. But, you got to think, well, how do you deal with it? You can either sort of like fall prey into it, or you can just fight it back.
Does racism create a wider divide amongst people?
Yes, it can, of course.
And then we go out to protest against it. Does that make any difference?
It can help, but we need to understand, how best. Look, education. Why do I say education? The Quran, our Quran, being Muslims, it tells us that God is telling us that, people, you've been created from a male and female, and be made into tribes and nations, so that you get to know each other. This is the key.
Of course, this is a deep subject to discuss here in a 1 hour program on Haj Radio. You are listening to right now, you're listening to Zed on the Drive Time on Haj Radio. Give us a call, give us your views. Maybe you've had some experiences, and talk to us on 0116 4822 086. And our SMS is 077 488 55055. Somebody is calling me right now on my phone. Hello, brother. How are you? Well, you're calling me. You got to call me on the landline, not on my phone, because it's difficult. But try. Let's have a go.
You know what? What do you want I'm going to say to come over for? It's full of shit. What's that?
Well, this caller, I don't think he's calling me, saying that this particular topic is not happening, he's saying. Right? He has very strong views on it.
Well, let's hear his views. Why doesn't he call?
The thing is, he's got to call the studio line, and he's calling me on my phone number. Right? So I've got to ask you, brother, to call the studio line on 0116 4822 086, or you can call on the SMS 077 488 55055. Then we can talk to him.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah?
If he's got some interesting points, we're
Yeah, we can debate with him, no problem. We are here to listen to everybody. So
as
now,
long as it's polite conversation.
yeah, of course, that's people get emotional very quickly, and then they don't know, and so on. So now, do you think racism has become a social media trend over time?
Inevitably, because as more people use social media, so they're going to voice their views on social media. It's given a platform for everybody to air their views, which I think is a positive thing. I think before we were passive, receiving the information, and if we were to be active, maybe sort of through protests or through writing letters and emails. But now everybody can voice their views just by picking up their phone, either doing a Twitter feed or or posting something on Instagram. So it's become very, very simple, open, and democratic for everybody to air their views and to make an impact.
Of course, now I'm going to talk to you about this incident we had with a huge racist backlash with 3 really up-and-coming, exciting young players. Now, they were black, Rashford. Now, do I remember Rashford for his brilliance? Raheem Sterling, he got us there in the final, did he not?
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yes.
And absolute...
It looked as though it was a setup, the 3 guys who took the penalties, missed it. So you can easily think, oh, is this coincidence, or is this made up? But obviously, it's just a coincidence. But some people would read more into it, and they try to make something out of it. I think, people who have those kind of racist views are bound.
Of course, what happens now, what we saw there takes us back 10 years. So a lot of people in the community all over the country are doing some wonderful work in the community in terms of cohesion, diversity, and working together as a team. Then you have that incident happens, and then everything flares up, and we are going backwards. Should we be going backwards? We should be learning from yesterday to make it good today and even better tomorrow for our children and our grandchildren. How are we going to create the right foundation for them? Now, what are we going to do to engage them in the system very early so we can break down the barriers? When I feel absolutely astonished when a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, he'd be talking to another person in his school and is asking him questions which are of a racist tone. And if it starts like that at the age of 4 and 5, where is he going to be at the age of 8 and then 15 and 21?
Listen, I think, as I said before, in schools there is a requirement for diversity. So it's the governing body of the school who has a legal requirement to educate.
So why do younger generations feel out of place no matter what race they are? This is a text message that has come to me right now asking the question, why do younger generations feel out of place no matter what race they are?
Interesting question. There could be many reasons why they would feel out of place, So we'd like to hear the listeners' views as well, if somebody calls in.
Of course, does racism come with age and influence?
I think the older that one gets, the less racist one becomes, I would think, because life is an experience. As people become more experienced in life and they become more open, they become, as they meet more people, the antidote to racism is for people to meet others from other cultures and to see that they are just normal human beings like them.
So do you feel that at the moment what we have seen over many decades is the antibiotic and the knee-jerk responses?
To some extent, yes.
I see. So we need to discuss more and get to the root cause and deal with that, It's very much like going to a dentist and you have to do a root canal. Until you do that, you're in pain and you get the antibiotic. So that is what the explanation is of antibiotic, right? It's a temporary fix. Long term, the toothache comes back again and either you extract it or you fix it with doing a root canal or whatever else that needs doing. I'm not a dentist, I'm not an optician. I'm Zed from the DriveTime. You're listening to Haj Radio right now on the DriveTime. Our number is 0116 4822 and our SMS and WhatsApp is 077 488 55055. So do send a text message or a WhatsApp or even call in and give us your views about how we're going to go forward to create a better, stronger community based on shared values, right? We build upon our commonality rather than our difference in race, color, creed, tradition, culture, right? Let's do that all together. And there is a lot of work to do, and we got to start doing this work sooner than later. Of course, we did start it 60 years ago, but people get older, the work gets left behind. So that happens because there's no sustainability, Brother Hussein.
Of course, and people like, they bring new ideas, fresh ideas. If you've come from diverse communities, it's what they call new blood.
Of course, when you have your governing bodies and you have your people that are sat around, they've been there for 25 years and they've been there for 30 years and little changes. This is one of the problems. We got to bring the young people on board, put them on the seat. At least if there are 10 young people, 10 older people, what's going to happen? Give me your thoughts on that. Like if we had a council of 50 people and 25 were young, under 35, and 25 was 55.
I think you need a mix of both. The older ones have the experience, they know how to do things, but the young ones come with the fresh ideas, and the future is with the young, obviously. So they need to be part of the setup.
Okay, we got to move fast now with your answers right now. What is your opinion on white privilege? Are you familiar with that? Are you familiar with the POP?
Yes.
Person of power, person of privilege. What is it going to do for you? Right? Are you familiar with that?
To some extent, yes. I mean, we live in a society of obviously there will be some privileges that have been coming through from centuries ago. The kings used to give huge plots of land.
Of course, got another message here that racism is not only a white-black thing or a white-brown thing or a black-brown thing. The racism of cultures and tribes and sects and religions, that is a problem as well.
It is, as I said before, we are here to get to know each other. Yeah? The more we get to know each other, the more we can learn from each other. And the most successful communities tend to be the ones who are open and interact. I mean, look at the successful communities, whether it is in certain parts of the state, Silicon Valley, for example. There's so much diversity there in Silicon Valley. I used to travel there 2 or 3 times a year, and from different backgrounds, and look at like the boss of Google and the bosses of many other companies.
All right, yeah, what you're saying is that diversity, racism, all that is great and acceptable when it's connected with the big M. Right? Money, right? CIP, cash in pocket, right? It's acceptable there and it's tolerated there. But yet when it comes to our sporting fraternities, all our institutions in the sporting world, then there isn't an equal representation. This is a message that has come to me on my phone right now saying that, what about equal representation in the game of football? What about equal representation in the game of cricket, rugby, and many other sports in this country? So that is something that we are working on. Haj Radio is connecting with all the relevant bodies throughout the country to discuss this in more detail, to create forums. Sometimes the answer does not lie in a 1-hour radio program, but we are here to create awareness, to discuss, to debate, and of course we will create bigger forums in which we can find some solutions. We can get to the root cause of the problem. Brother Hussein.
Yeah, every little bit helps, and what you're doing here is amazing. Raising awareness, having a platform for diverse opinions.
So all of you listening in, if you're on the Facebook or any other platform that we are on right now, social media can make a huge difference. All of you listening in, give us your feedback, give us your comments, and we can run this forward and expand upon this. So, Brother Hussein, thank you very much for coming here today, joining us on Haj Radio.
It's so quick.
Yeah. So, this is the Drive Time. You're listening to Zed on the Drive Time on Haj Radio. Jazakallah khair for listening in. We shall be back again tomorrow.